Michelle O'Neill is the daughter of C.M. O'Neill Jr. and Jackie Lynn O'Neill. Originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Mrs. O'Neill moved to Washington, D.C. metropolitan area in 1993 to attend Howard University. Obtaining her Bachelor's of Arts and graduating cum laude from the real HU, she later received her Juris Doctorate from the Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law. Prior to forming Milestone Title in 2004, Mrs. O'Neill practiced various areas of law, including personal injury and commercial law. As the founding member of Milestone, Mrs. O'Neill is committed to excellence and is involved in all aspects of the company, from reviewing the files, conducting settlements, marketing, and resolving both basic and complex legal title and legal issues for clients. As a real estate professional, Mrs. O'Neill utilizes her practical and legal experience to provide superior service and expertise to buyers, sellers, and other real estate and financial professionals and their clients. Mrs. O'Neill enjoys teaching and trains real estate agents and lenders on various areas in the industry. She also works closely with nonprofit agencies and conducts first-time home buyer workshops. Helping the underserved is very important to Cerissa. She has assisted homeowners with loan modifications and currently is very active in the short sale negotiations, which she started doing back in 2006. Cerissa enjoys rollerblading, practicing Tai Chi, kayaking, hiking, and most outdoor activities. She loves the sun, moon, and ocean, something no one knows about her. She won the Iron Person competition at her dojo and did 67 standard push-ups in 1 minute. Now, without further ado, I introduce to you Cerissa O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Today, I'm going to talk to you a bit about the settlement process and title insurance. I wanted my first presentation to you all to be exactly what we do to give you a little background and information. And then future presentations, I'll go further into lots of information that can assist you in your business and personal life. Who is Milestone Title? We're going to do a little bit of who, what, when, and where. So Milestone Title is the very best title company in all of Maryland, D.C., and Virginia.
Yes.
We're an honest, dependable, and efficient title company that cares and goes out of its way to ensure that all parties to the transaction are 100% satisfied with their closing experience. We are an attorney-owned and operated real estate settlement services firm that handles residential and commercial real estate closings in Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. What do we do? Well, there are 3 steps in the process of what we do at Milestone. There's the pre-processing phase, the processing phase, and the post-closing phase. In the pre-processing phase, what we do is once you've signed your contract and your realtor faxes your contract over to our office, we order the title search from a third-party abstractor. What they do is they go to the courthouse and they pull back deeds from 60 years ago. They're checking land records for deeds of trust, liens, judgments, easements, anything that could actually affect your interest or title to the property. What we're doing is making sure that the seller conveys clear and marketable title to the purchaser. We order the survey, we prepare the title insurance binder per the lender's instructions and requirements, we contact the local tax offices, condo or homeowners associations, and seller's lender for payoffs, and then we examine that abstract or report that comes in from the abstractor, and we resolve all title issues. Then the file moves to the processing phase. At that point, closing is scheduled with the lender and realtors. We obtain the lender's instructions and loan documents as well as the proceeds. We prepare the final HUD-1 and other documents to be signed at closing. We then conduct the closing and sell title insurance. And we'll go a little bit into what title insurance is in a moment. In the post-closing phase, we disperse all of the proceeds. We record the deed and deeds of trust and land records. And at Milestone, we handle recordings ourselves. A lot of title companies will mail out recordings to the abstractor or to the courthouse. It could take weeks, months to get on record, not knowing if there are any issues that come up. We in-house handle all of our recordings, so they're usually done within a week of closing. We then issue the title insurance policy. We send the lender all of the signed loan documents, and we submit the payoffs. Now, what is title insurance? Everyone asks that question. A lot of folks don't really quite understand what it is. So in order to answer that question, we're going to go over a few concepts. Title. First of all, a title is the foundation of property ownership. It is the owner's right to possess and use the property. Now the deed. The deed is not necessarily proof of ownership. It's merely a document by which the right of ownership in land is transferred. It doesn't do away with rights others may have in the property. So for instance, when property goes into tax sale, how does that happen? Well, if somebody doesn't pay their taxes, someone else can pay taxes for them and attach a lien to the property. And so just because, that deed is in your name doesn't necessarily mean that property is all yours. Also, we have instances, which is why title insurance is important, is if a wife or husband is left off title to a deed or there's fraud involved, there is ownership rights that person has that could affect your ownership in the property. An abstract, that's the history of the property title as revealed by public records. Title insurance is your policy of protection against loss if any problems, even a hidden defect in title, which an examination of records could not reveal, results in a claim against your ownership interest in the land. It's financial protection against paying claims and legal fees involved in defending the title should a dispute arise. If a claim is made against your property, title insurance will, in accordance with the terms of your policy, assure you of a legal defense and pay all of your court costs and related fees. An incident that happened with Milestone a few years back is there was a gentleman that purchased a property with Milestone. 8 days later, the gentleman that sold that property sold that same property to someone else. And so now you have two people that have gone through the loan process, purchased the same property. What happened is, of course, title insurance claims were filed. The person who purchased the property with us was actually got to keep the property. The second individual was completely made whole. Their lender was paid off in full. Any monies that they put into the deal, they were reimbursed. So for, a very small amount, title insurance can be an owner's policy anywhere from $300 to $800, depending. So for that one-time fee that you pay, it lasts while you own the property, and even after you sell the property, you're protected in the event that anything like that were to happen.
What happened to the guy that sold it twice?
Oh, he got locked up, and I recently got a notice that he passed away while in jail. He's an older gentleman from D.C., so he was in his 60s, running games on folks, right? Yep. So he was, he was arrested, locked up, and he was in the hospital. He was, had the surveillance, the whole nine. It was pretty bad. Now there are two types of title insurance policies. One is a lender's policy, and one is an owner's policy. The lender's policy is required. The lender forces really the buyer or borrower to pay for a policy to protect their interest on the loan. But the owner's policy is an optional policy, which means as the purchaser, you have the right to choose it or waive it. We, based on the explanation that I just gave, it's always a good idea to make sure you get an owner's title insurance policy. When do you choose Milestone Title? Well, buyers and borrowers have the right to choose their own title company. I know you've heard this before. If you're purchasing a property, that first meeting with your realtor, you let them know, hey, I have a relationship with Milestone Title. This is the title company of choice that I want to use. Make sure they're aware of that. And then at signing of the sales contract is when you actually put Milestone Title in the contract. And then if you're refinancing, your first meeting with your loan officer, lender, or mortgage professional, you again would let them know that you have a relationship with Milestone Title and you really want to use us to close your transaction. Where do you settle? At Milestone Title. We're located in Landover, Maryland, right across the street from the New Carrollton Metro Station, where 495 and Route 50 intersect on the Beltway. We close at your realtor's offices, your home, or your office, which basically means we will go anywhere to make sure that we accommodate you the best that we can. We're often there after hours, sometimes even on weekends, so we really do everything that we can and go out of our way to make sure that our customers are satisfied. Any questions?
Very good.
This is going to sound vague, but why is it that no matter who you talk to, they always seem to, when they're going to closing, their closing always seems to get pushed back? Or it seems like that's always an issue.
Why that's an issue now, I don't want my phone to alarm. Unfortunately, and I'm not throwing, and it's not Chris, right? So when we deal with him, we got pretty much. However, it tends to be now a lender issue, which then carries over to a borrower issue. So oftentimes borrowers, home buyers, aren't providing all of the information to their lender when requested. And so lenders go through a process, and Chris may be able to chime in as well, with regard to underwriting requirements that need to be met in order to actually approve the loan for closing. And so oftentimes these things aren't happening in a timely manner, and it pushes settlement back. Other lenders also have challenges. We have credit challenges. You have a homeowner who, was doing well and then decided to make a big purchase, and that throws everything off. Now their debt-to-income ratio changes, and then it's a challenge and things are delayed. If you're buying a foreclosed or REO home, it's drama, and it's because you have, all these banks are purchasing properties, they're foreclosing on properties, okay? So in order for them to actually record the deeds, they need to pay money. Well, in order to avoid having to pay that money up front, they would rather wait until they have a purchaser on the back end so that then they have the funds for the taxes and everything else. So in doing that, substitute trustees' deeds aren't often recorded, which then that's why it's another reason to have your own title company to force and push that seller to be on their job to make sure that they get that deed recorded and or submit it to us so that we can record it for them. So another good point is if you know anybody that is purchasing an REO foreclosed home and the seller or bank is trying to force them to use their title company, no. Ask for a split settlement so that you have somebody that's there to represent your interest and make sure that that seller and their title company are on their job so that we can get to closing without further delay. Because they will delay, and so what? They delay. But if you delay, there's a stipulation in the contract that for every day you miss closing beyond that settlement date, you have to pay $100 a day per diem, something crazy. But there's nothing in the contract that states if they're the cause of the delay, that they have to pay you anything.
Quick question. Does only the buyer or buyer and seller require a title company?
Buyer and seller. Buyer and
So
seller.
there could actually be two title companies involved?
Yep, there could be, and that happens a lot. We call that a split settlement, and that's because the seller typically has a relationship with their title company. They don't want to pay extra fees. And so if you as a purchaser has your own title company, we're not allowed to charge the seller any fees, and vice versa. And then we just coordinate with each other, transferring documents, overnighting, things like that.
Can you give a quick, just one real quick, can you give a quick list of some things that an owner would be reimbursed for if they had owner's title insurance and they needed to use it?
Yep. Let's say the title company fails to pay a seller's lien or judgment or property tax and it comes back, and the homeowner is like, I'm not responsible to pay that. It's a lien on title. The title company didn't catch it. Then in that instance, they would file a claim through the title insurance company, and they would pay that out. That's a small example. Another example is when we had an instance recently where the gentleman that purchased, the seller had an outstanding loan that wasn't recorded. So these are things that don't come up in title. So now that lender wants to come after and sue the current owner because they weren't paid at settlement. Well, your lien wasn't recorded, but it doesn't stop people from suing. So remember that too. People sue whether they're right or wrong, trying to get monies in. And so at that point, you then hire the title or file a claim so that you don't have to pay the attorney's fees on your own. The title insurance actually steps in and covers that on your behalf.
Okay.
So those are a couple of examples.
Very good.